All right, everybody. I'm very pleased to welcome Rashad Woods to the Jeff Macolino podcast. How are you today, Rashad?
I'm doing well, doing well. Much appreciated. Thank you for having me on. I'm an honored guest to be here for you.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you on. I mentioned before that I've talked to a couple episodes of the Tron podcast or
Mm.
the ran the randomness of
Nothing.
nothing. Okay,
Yes,
I'm like
yes.
I remember I'm like it makes sense, but but I
Yeah,
always I'm like, what's the N? What's the
yeah,
N?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. The good N word, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
All
there's an
good.
N word that escapes my grasp.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one we're speaking of right now. It's all good. Hey, man, listen, I can take a good joke so that anybody who's listening, man, grow a pair and have a nice day. It's all good, man. We keep it clean and fun. But yeah, it's the Randomness of Nothing podcast, man. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I like your podcast style, um, frankly, because it's kind of similar to mine. I mean, you've got a wide variety of guests that had come
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I think one of them who was on my podcast not
Mhm.
too long ago, Jacqueline Wolfhart.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yeah. In Florida too.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, in Florida.
Actually,
Good woman. Real good
yeah,
person.
I just talked to her 2 days ago or something because I submitted my film
Yeah.
that we filmed last November. I just submitted it to her. Uh, I mean,
Film
in the past
festival.
two
Yeah.
days. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Will
To her
the
film.
Wolf Film Festival.
Yeah, and it works out great because that's her last name, right? So it was like that was like the perfect name to. I was like, oh, geez, that makes perfect sense. No, she's a good person, wonderful person, great interview, does great work on the side outside of her film festival too.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Ooh, that's
really, yeah, really good.
intense.
Yeah, really good individual.
Yeah. So what brought you into the podcast world? Even before that, I mean, are you daily during the week?
Yeah,
Ooh, you're popping them out.
yeah, man, it's kind of crazy, right? So I'm almost a product of not saying no, you know what I mean? Because I'm trying to make sure that everybody feels welcome and I have a good product out. And so now when you see people, I almost have to try to meter myself at this point because you want to make sure you have a quality episode and you be respectful for the guests for the time that you want to allot them for. So, but yeah, stuff's coming out weekly. People are reaching out. And I think one of the things that's happened really positively is I'm not an agenda-driven podcast, right? Like there are places and spaces and whether the merits, I'm not here to judge the merits of those particular spaces, but for what people have accomplished and what they've done, those are universal stories, right?
Yeah.
What you ultimately want to dream and aspire to be, those are universal beliefs. So I kind of found that when you watch the Discovery Channel or when you watch the History Channel, you can turn your mind off to every single other thing that's taking place and you could just watch something that's fascinating. And you can be like, I took something better from that experience that I sat down and watched 45 minutes, an hour, etc. And so I was like, let me carve my niche into that space where people can feel safe, feel respected, and ultimately manifest my own personal curiosity.
Yeah, that's a big part of what I like in podcasts and podcasters is when it's not uh, there are very few podcasts that I mean, I'm sure you've heard this when you were if you told anyone I'm thinking of starting a podcast. Most
Oh, for
people's
sure.
advice is you got to have a real specific
Yes.
subject, you
Yes.
got to have a real narrow
Yeah.
focus. That's the way to do it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
those podcasts may be useful to some people, but
For
they're
sure.
boring.
Yeah, man. How many times can you abuse the same topic? And I'm not like it's different. Like I've had people who mastered one territory, right? So if you're like, if you're talking about a health advocate, right? You're a doctor. Like I watch, there's one YouTuber, he's a doctor and he talks about sports injuries that happen, all the time, from various different athletes. Very successful at it. So ACL, MCL, whatever the case. That's different because that's a doctor. But if you're talking about, ooh, this just happened, this world event yesterday, let's talk about it. This world yesterday happened, let's talk about it. This politician said this yesterday, let's talk about it. It's like, dude, like, okay, man, the sun rises every single day. Like, there's something fascinating else going on besides what somebody posted or, what world leader said, and we're gonna analyze this to death. And then, like, what are we talking about here? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, and I've also fallen into, and I've fallen me not. I mean, I love all the people in this. I'm lumping them all into a group, and that's not really fair. But like the spiritual people who do a lot of the woo woo things, and that's a term they use. It's not. like making fun of them.
I never
Uh,
heard of that.
yeah, well, and I've ended up having because I've had a few like I had a medium on the podcast and I had
Hmm.
past life regressionist on the podcast and
Hmm.
then they started telling their friends in their circles
Come to, yeah,
and they'd
yes,
start coming to me
yeah,
and they all at the end were like, I've never done a podcast like this.
yeah,
And I'm like, that's weird. Like I'm just asking normal questions.
correct.
And that, but the thing is, they go on other spiritual people's podcasts and they dive deep into the weeds that if you and
Right.
I listened to it, we'd be like, is this in English?
Right. Well, yeah, yeah, right. And it's funny you say that, and I don't mean to cut you off, but it's
No.
like sometimes worshiping, and this isn't a diss to anybody's profession. Sometimes you know how like you almost have to tell somebody, talk to me like I'm a kindergartner.
Hmm.
Explain this to me like I'm in kindergarten, right? Like if you could tell somebody the disease and you can get to the scientific terms of the disease, or you can tell me what's wrong with me. Right.
Right.
So like tell me what's wrong with me. I'll Google that fancy term that you just said to me, and then I can figure out how I can get the in between to get better than what I am. But I
Yeah.
mean, to your point, I don't need a research paper to have a conversation with somebody, right? And sometimes people PhD things too much up, so to speak.
Yeah, well, and that one of them did actually say afterwards, after the interview to me, they're like, "This was actually helpful because I haven't really had to explain it to someone who has no idea what it is
Right.
for so long that it was actually difficult to do."
It's
And they're
crazy.
like, "It shouldn't be. Like, I should be able to explain this to the normal person. I'm trying to sell it to them."
Exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
yeah. So I mean, I've got God, I've probably had more than 2 dozen of that kind of
Mhm.
people,
For sure.
and all but maybe one or two like me.
Yeah, and the thing is about it is at the end of the day, like I've maybe this is maybe you and I are similar in this regard. I was never I can't build anything to save my life. I'm a terrible cook. I can't fix cars, right? I mean, if I stare at something long enough, I can, balance a shelf, right? But the one thing that I can kind of figure out was, say, man, I had encyclopedias as a kid. I read a lot. I watched documentaries. I was always fascinated about something around me. I would be like, okay, this building is up. Who built that building? How was the structural design done? Tunnels are built. Who built the tunnels? Why did these start? So I was always kind of like fascinated, not just from what was in front of me, but how it kind of got built and how it stayed consistent throughout course of time. So I said, okay, well, maybe I can just figure out my own personal curiosity in addition to what people do and what they've made. Because like I said, man, I'm a heck of a reader. I don't necessarily read novels, books, so to speak, but I did always, I'm a wormhole guy that just goes down that wormhole of why this is the way that it is.
Yeah, no, and that's the kind of person I think that makes the best podcaster.
Appreciate
At
it.
least my style that I enjoy. I mean, look, Joe Rogan, a
The gold
huge.
standard.
He is that guy. He's just
The gold
like he has
standard.
people on because he's like, I want to learn about the pyramids.
That's
and
why he gets nothing. That's why he gets, Neil deGrasse Tyson, then he'll have, Dan Aykroyd, right? And so like
yeah,
you're not there's a place to be held to be specific about a specific topic, but like, and this isn't a knock on anything. You can only watch HGTV for so long, right?
yeah.
There's a reason why you have multiple channels on your television or multiple streaming, or there's a reason why Pandora or XM Radio exists because at some point that station gets stale, so to speak. I don't want to just listen to DMX and Tupac and Notorious B.I.G. all day. I want to listen to Soundgarden. I want to listen to Alice in Chains. I want to listen to Pearl Jam. I want to listen to. So options are very good for people.
you 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 should see when I'm driving and putting on a Spotify playlist. I'm like, what was I? Why did I put all this in one playlist? I'm
Hmm.
like, I kind of enjoy it, but what
Right.
was I thinking? And I'm like, oh, that's what I was thinking. I don't want to listen to
Exactly.
the same thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it's funny, when you watch different, nobody questions what movies somebody watches, right? Like, they're like, oh, that was a great movie. But for some reason, when you have different musical tastes, people say, I didn't know you listened to that. And it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, I can discern from, like, the great producers, the Pharrells, the Timberlands, the Doc, they will sample anything that sounded great, regardless of the genre. But for some reason, if you're driving your car and you're listening to, The Cure, or you're listening to, U2, you roll your window up a little bit because you're not supposed to be listening to that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
So,
yeah, there's
Get over it, man. It's not that big of a deal. You'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm still guilty of that. I've even there's a ugh, I'm embarrassed to say it, but I have to say it because you know. But there's a song from Les Mis, the
Okay.
musical,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I like singing along with it in the car.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I get to a red light and I'm like doing this so the person next to me can't see my mouth is
Sure. And right. And one of the best musical tracks I heard and of all time that actually like gets me kind of emotional even listening to it is the end scene in Gattaca, that violin when Ethan Hawke's character is going up in the space shuttle and you're just
Mhm.
like it's so poignant, right? And I can't play a violin to save my life, but it was just the way that music played puts me in a different mental state and says, okay, now you can expand your listening spectrum. And it's not just the movie on the screen. And so, like, that's how it kind of cultivated the podcast, which is why I can kind of jump from guest to guest and kind of swim that kind of respective lane because I
Yeah.
kind of got it as far as like when to stop, when to shut up, when to listen, when to pause. And I haven't had that awkward moment guest so far. I'm sure it's coming, right? But it's inevitable, right? Like I'm not.
How many have you had?
I've had about 80 guests so far, right?
Oh
I've
wow.
I've
That's
had about
that's good not to have an awkward
yeah. I Google the person before I look at their LinkedIn and I'm like, okay, if I if you've been arrested when you were 16, I'm not gonna like gotcha on the thing, like, ooh, let's talk about that. And then next thing you know, that wasn't in the show notes that you revealed previously. I'm not going to do that to the guest on the show.
right.
Yeah, like you're a jerk, right? You know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's I've had some of those situations too where I'm like, "Oh man, I should ask them about this, but
No,
I'm not saying anything."
I'm not
Uh,
Diane Sawyer, man. So like that's not my place to really, probe deep into it because I'm gonna look for the eyes to change and the teeth to clench and the neck to stiffen up a little before I do that.
yeah, yeah, and I think my thought is like I have had that situation with a guest where I'm like, "Well, I won't bring this up," and they've brought it up because
That's
they want to
different.
talk about it, and I'm
Yeah,
like, "All right, well then let's talk
cool.
about it." That's
Right.
but yeah, that's my I there's no reason for and I'm guessing you have a identical thought process where I used to tell guests and I don't anymore, but it's still my general rule of thumb is
Mhm.
like if you said something you're like, could you take that out of the podcast? I'd be like,
Absolutely.
yeah, fine.
Of
You
course.
if you could tell me what part of the conversation it was, it would be helpful.
Right. Right.
um, have you had now I'm just diving into the podcasting
It's all
weeds
good.
because it's fascinating because you're gonna be my 251st episode.
Awesome.
No,
Awesome.
I've only had about 200 guests, I would say, because I've had people on multiple times. But
hmm
have you ever had two of the most awkward things, episodes you've recorded and just decided can't can't put it out?
I haven't, it's funny is the only thing that ever happened was, I had a guest, I won't, say their name, who started on a cursing rant, but it wasn't at me. It was just like they were a cursor. And I'm just like, I don't know if I need to stop you at some point from cussing this much, but like this is not what the show is about, right? Like, and so I haven't had the fortunate distinction again, like I'm sure it's gonna happen to me, where because we all see outtakes on YouTube of things that went south. But I've kind of had a good vetting process so far where I think because it's in this space of what have you accomplished, what are you doing, how have you accomplished this prospective goal, it kind of keeps those guardrails up a little bit to
Yeah,
where it doesn't completely get derailed, right? So I've been fortunate where that hasn't happened yet, but I do have had people that have cussed, and I'm just like, I'm gonna just bleep that out, and you won't even know I did
yeah, yeah. If I ever go on your show, you might.
it.
I see. I don't think I've cussed at all while we're talking. But the thing is, I may have cussed 17 times, and I wouldn't like. I don't generally do it, but it's like one of those things where it's so casual to me that I'm like,
hmm
"Uh-oh, did I
Oh,
just say something?"
and
I,
believe me, I'm not that dude. I'm like, that's just not the space I'm cultivating. So it's not like,
right.
I'm personally offended.
Oh no, 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 no. Of course, but yeah, you've got to. You can't. You don't want to jar your audience. I mean, frankly,
Right,
that's what you got to acknowledge.
right,
Um, yeah, I think I've only had two the entire time that I did not put out. One had audio issues,
right.
and this was like an early episode, and I'm like, I think there's something. Are you guys hearing that? There were two guests.
Yeah,
And they're like, no, everything sounds fine. And I'm like, all right, I guess everything's fine. It was not fine.
right.
So I
Oh,
was trying to fix it. And then she emailed me and said, she worked for some financial firm. And she's like, our lawyers need to review before you can put this episode out. I'm like, I'm not spending
yeah,
hours and
no,
hours working on this for your lawyers to chop up the episode.
no, I'm
So,
straight.
no,
Have a
we're
nice,
done. And
right.
then the other one was unfortunate. I had a guy reach out to me who did SEO marketing.
Yeah, all those guys are yeah relentless in emailing all the time.
Well, so I have him on the podcast. It's probably the shortest podcast I ever recorded because I was like falling asleep and it was just so mind-numbingly boring, frankly.
Mm,
And I'm
mm.
like, all right, I guess I'll put it out. He took the time to come on the show, but I'm not. I got all these episodes to. I'm putting them out. This will be like the Christmas week episode or something. And then when it came time, I'm like, I got that episode. I remember, couldn't find it on my hard drive.
No kidding.
So I don't
Oh
know if I
wow.
accidentally deleted it or if I moved it into a folder
It
but
it
I'm
ju
not. I'm like, what?
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he didn't reach out and ask, then it's one of those things where it just kind of got lost in the abyss, so to speak, right?
I think he was the only guest I ever had who, at the end of the podcast, said, "If you end up putting this out, let me know." And I'm like, he knows that didn't go well.
Sometimes, it's hit and miss, man, and there's no perfect rhyme or reason to it, and the hard part is actually starting, right? Because you can
Yeah,
always sit back and say, am I going to be this? Am I going to be that? And anybody who wants to get in this space, it's not just about firing up a microphone and putting on a set of headphones and making magic happen. It's a lot more difficult than that because the number one thing that you have to understand is that you are open to criticism and feedback. Your quality could suck, and you're going to have to, and you more or less, if you're not prepared, it's going to show, and then that will resonate with future viewers. I mean, if you put it on Spotify, it's you have to be willing to take it on the chin if you have a good or a bad thing, and that's life.
yeah, yeah. It puts you out there. I even had I was on a first date with a chick who, I guess, the night I met her, my friend told her friend I had a podcast,
Hmm.
and she found the podcast,
Oh, buddy.
and she's like, "Oh, I can't wait to listen to this episode where you and your guests discuss things like abortion and I'm like,
What are we talking about here? What are we talking
this
about
isn't
here?
fair."
What are we talking about here? Like, I just want to go to this nice restaurant and have a nice movie. Like, am I supposed to meter myself on? Like, I think one thing that I figured out is that people, because of the way society works with instant gratification of either making a post or a reaction to something, now people have this instantaneous joy to make somebody else feel bad, right? And I think that if I cultivate a space where it's better that I'm kind of neutral in that space, listen, man, if you want to find something that'll make you upset, trust me, there are places that you can go pretty fast. It's not hard. I'm not that person. Like this is not where anybody's going to feel like they got beat up or they're going to be like, yeah, those group of people suck because that's the guy I want to listen to. Like, man, like
Yeah.
just that's not for me. And people who know me they know me, but like on this particular space, such a waste of time for me to even try to dive into something like that.
No, I always again I have a slightly different style than yours, but I think we have the same fundamental principle of like I always want this to be a good time.
Of
Like
course,
I want people to listen to this and be like, as you may be able to tell, I'm a heavy drinker. Uh, you should
bottoms up, baby.
yeah. If you're listening to this, you should be like, this would be a cool conversation to have two guys
Yeah,
next to me at the bar talking about.
that's what I'm saying, right? Like, and so it's for me like when I practice martial arts, right? I don't. I the instructions are the instructions, and it's up to my job as a student to follow the instructions. There are just simple, when I hear these stories from people, it should resonate from anybody, regardless of their background or beliefs. And so now you hear from somebody who created a successful business, you hear somebody who created a niche for themselves, a lane for themselves. We all ultimately, and for all the great ideas that have come to fruition, most ideas are in the cemetery because people took them with them and they never pursued it for various reasons.
Mm,
Whether they were scared. I mean, it's amazing you're an adult and you're scared to pursue something, right?
yeah.
As a kid, you're curious, like it doesn't matter. But as an adult, you start to becoming, oh man, what's Jeff gonna think if, on his podcast if I don't say or do the right thing? So it's like, you know what, man, throw caution to the wind and see what happens.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. And by the way, a great line about, most thoughts are in a cemetery.
For sure.
Um, yeah, it's crazy. It's not, I mean, I suffer from the same thing,
Mhm.
in different way. Not finally, it's been a while, but I've gotten over like the people, I am not really controversial, but people might not like things I say, and I don't care. You're free to have a difference of opinion and blah blah blah, whatever.
For sure.
But by the same token, I mean, I've got two movies. One is completed
Mhm.
and entering
Awesome.
film festivals. The other one we just shot in June, and I'm helping edit that, and it's not very far from being done.
Right.
And
Cool.
I'm like, I need to market these movies. That's really the whole point. And it's like,
Hmm.
I don't even want to go on my personal Facebook and see like
Right.
what are my old high school classmates going to think like, oh, really? We're going to watch
Right,
you're
right.
38. Stop being a kid and grow up.
Yeah,
Um
exactly.
so,
Isn't it crazy?
yeah, yeah, and it's like I know I have to do it, but it's going to be I guarantee you because this is my style. It's
Yeah.
going to be not like watch this, I'm so proud of it. It's going to be like look at how fat I was in this movie. I've lost so much weight since then. You should watch the movie just to laugh at how fat I was.
Oh
Like
man.
that'll probably be the post.
That'll probably right. And it's more of a and the thing is about it is, I think by cultivating a space where you can laugh at yourself, I remember when I was, started doing podcasts, I was in my basement and then I look at the earlier episodes and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I was just happy just to get a sentence. I was happy to get a guest. I was happy for somebody to actually want to talk to me. And then, then I would just did paralysis of analysis. I better answer every question. And then I realized just talk to somebody. Just have
Yeah.
a be a human being and have a regular conversation. And so my job as a host is to ultimately have the person feel like their story was told, they were heard, and they got something good out of that and recommend me to somebody else to get on there. That's my mission, right? That's my ultimate mission of the show.
Yeah, no, it's and again, I think it comes across and you do a great job with it. It's interesting when I trying to think at what stage I kind of switched over. When I started, I used to have pages of notes like, all right, touch on this, do this.
Hmm.
And it was now, to be fair to me, I barely ever cross things off the list.
Yeah.
um, but as I got further, I'm like, unless they have a movie I can watch or a
Hmm.
podcast I can listen to, or
Right.
you send me your book. And even
Correct.
if you send me your book, I've told this to others, I'll read the first like 20 to 50 pages because
Right.
I don't want to read the whole book.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to read the book, but
I want to know the
because
story from you.
I don't want to ruin the book either. If it's like I'm oh
Yes.
spoiler alert.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So so it's a weird balance. I like to listen to someone's podcast before they come on because it gives me a feel of how they
Same
operate.
here. Same here.
And a movie, if they're promoting a movie,
Of course.
obviously, if it's
Of course.
available for me to watch, I should watch it.
Right.
And I'm a filmmaker technically now myself, so it would be rude not to. But the but the but the other guests, especially the spiritual guests I found, the less I do pre-work, like I got to know the basic of what they do, but I don't want to
Yes.
know the details of what they do.
Correct.
I want them to tell me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, like I had a gentleman who checks for haunted houses. I want
Mm.
you to tell me about what haunted houses you visit. I'll say that this is what you do, but I don't want to be like, yeah, so, for the purpose of the show, like I want to leave some up for information disclosure for when you tell me in a specific house of what happened in that house. I
Yeah.
don't want to look up the 50 houses that you looked up and know the ending to every single one, because then I'm just like, okay, yeah, you did this here, you did this here, you did this here. Have a nice day. And then he's like, well, that was I wanted to kind of leave some suspense up to you,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, the only time that it is interesting with authors of fiction books.
Mhm.
Uh and actually one guy who had a non-fiction book, I think he was abducted by aliens, but he wouldn't say. He's like, I can't say until the book's released. And I'm like, why did you ask to come on my podcast if you can't talk about the interesting thing?
The one thing that I needed to hear
Like,
the most,
yeah,
right,
the thing that anyone listening wants to know, and you're like, I can't talk about that. It's like you you reached out to me.
right. And now I'm sitting here trying to grasp at something that
Yeah.
you won't reveal, and that's the main topic of
Yeah,
discussion.
well, and then I think it just ended up being just random conversation, which is fine. Like, I am happy to have someone on and just be like,
Yeah.
tell
It,
stories, talk about, because things lead down rabbit holes,
of
like,
course they do.
and
100%.
that leads to stories. So I have guests. Sometimes I specifically invite them on because I'm like, I know this will meander into interesting places.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And sometimes those are the fun things. I had a neighbor one time. When I was a kid, I got locked out of my house. My parents weren't home. My older brother wasn't home, and it was the middle of the winter. Like I let the dog out, and then I couldn't get back in the house. And so now I am like 11, 12 years old and can't get in the house. And then, I always lived across the street from this neighbor all my life. But then, the neighbor, you never go in their house, right? Older gentleman. And so I went in there. And then I see all of his World War II stuff. And I'm like, this guy was in World War II? Like, holy smokes. And then, like, I sit in his house till my parents come home. And I knew the guy for years. So he wasn't the creepy guy down the street, right? So, like, found out he was, like, stationed in the Pacific, and all these interesting, facts. I can't remember who was in the Navy or the Army, but it was like, it literally felt like like a Stephen King book where you find out this guy had all these things that you never knew took place. And then I was like, man, I became better from knowing all that about you. And I didn't
mm,
know this. His uniform was hanging up in his house. He had pictures from when he was stationed overseas. And you're just like, are you kidding me, dude? So those are the type of things
awesome.
that you can find out in real time when your mind gets a little expanded. And sometimes it can happen haphazardly when you just get locked out of your house.
Yeah, no, I love that story, and I love it because it. So I went on a rant on Instagram, and I hate Instagram, but so they tell you how many views you've gotten in the last 30 days,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden I started posting more frequently and posting
yeah,
daily and blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, like once it passed six figures, and then every day I post, it grows, and it's a revolving 30 days, so it's like.
wow,
I guess I need to keep feeding the algorithm. So I'm on a weight loss kick. So I go on, like 4 to 8 miles of walking every day.
wow.
And that's boring. So I just eventually think of some random thing and talk. And I ended up accidentally going on a rant. There was some studies that came out that said millennials
Mhm.
were the drunkest generation in the history of mankind. And I said, congratulations, we're the champions, we did it. But then a couple days later, it was like the generation beneath is the most sober generation of all
Yes,
time. And I'm
yes,
like, look, and I know that seems on the surface like a good thing. And for some people, maybe it is in
right.
certain ways. But I went on a rant about, look, your alcohol sobriety, like you're smoking weed on your couch by yourself when the drinking aspect, you go out and you meet people
Yes,
and you
yes,
socialize with people.
right.
Drinking is not generally something you do by yourself at home.
Cor-
Most people go out to do it. That's a
Right.
great thing, going out, being part, socializing. And one of the things I said is make a best friend at the bar who you'll never see again. Become
Right.
best friends at the bar with a guy you'll never see it. And you were telling me that story. It reminded me of years ago at one chain restaurant. I was watching a USF game at the bar,
Hmm.
and I was sitting next to this older guy, and we were talking for a little bit, and then he starts telling me he was the Willie Mays' backup and won two World Series with the Giants, and he's telling me all these
Wow.
stories, and
Amazing.
I'm like, this is amazing. And we talked for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I was just like, that this is so
You-
cool.
Right.
I couldn't tell you his name.
Right.
Obviously, I never saw him again.
Didn't
It's like
matter.
didn't matter. And those are the experiences that
Right.
the younger generation is missing out on because they're smoking weed and playing video games. Get off my lawn.
It's so funny is that there's books and articles written about all this and all these other things, and it's like this is not complicated stuff. It really isn't complicated stuff. For all intents and purposes, it's the ability to have a conversation. I will say, about the generation. I don't want to date myself, but they've went through COVID, they went through the Great Recession, so there are things that have impacted social skills that are very
Yeah.
real. Some of these people, and I'm not, I'm not a shrink. I'm not one of those guys that's like you have to psychobabble everything up. But to there's a degree, there might be a little bit of social scarring that took place. And then
Yeah.
two, like I know it sounds like a little bit of a stretch, but they never had a blockbuster. So like you never actually had on a Friday night had to actually like go out to rent a movie, then go out to pick up the pizza, then stand in line to get the movie and actually have that 2 hour like I have to go out to seek my entertainment. Now everything's insular and easily accessible, right? And so now it's all at the touch of your fingertips at the expense of human interaction,
Yeah.
right?
I
That's really
almost wonder if not block if a blockbuster type thing, maybe just for, people 35 and older, but
mhm,
if a blockbuster type thing where maybe you could go to rent a movie and just scan a QR code and then,
for sure.
you know, go home and
Absolutely.
watch it. I almost want like to me, I'm like, that would be awesome if I could walk around and look for a movie instead of well,
Oh, for
what's streaming?
sure.
Like if you could just be like, oh, this movie looks good. Scan the
Yeah.
QR code. It's streaming on this. I'll go
Uh,
home and watch it now.
Right, right. And it's so different than whether it was the movie or the video game. So let's say you didn't get the movie or the video game of your choice.
Yeah.
You were forced to get something that maybe you wouldn't have watched, but for the sake of the entertainment for that night, I have to get something. So you skipped over the two or three you didn't get, and then you got two or three that you weren't going to watch, and you discussed it with your friend, your date, and then you're like, hey, that was actually really good. And then next you know, you invite friends over. So now everybody's just like, hey, you want to do a Netflix watch party instead, right? Hey, what did you watch on? So that's kind of the things that have happened why maybe like those avenues of responsible drinking and meeting people have not taken place because man, I'll just stream it and sit at home.
Yeah.
You know
No,
what I mean?
I'm making I mean, you understand this as a podcaster. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Right.
Um, and I am trying to make a concerted effort to like Zoom has to be part of the interviews, or I would not have many people I could have as guests. But
Right.
I'm trying to make a concerted effort to locate St. Petersburg, Tampa people who can come to my house. Like
Yeah.
I have the lead actress in the movie I shot in June is coming over next week to do an interview in person,
Absolutely.
and that's I'm like
150%.
I love the Zooms, and I do think like look, I have people who are significant friends of mine that I've met through podcasting. Like it's
Beautiful. Wonderful.
like I have hell
One.
I did a just going down a rabbit hole, but just to show the extent of what I consider I earlier this year, I got blacked out drunk, and my kids were with
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
ex-wife on a
Right.
cruise. So there was, and I had also just sent out audition sides to all the actors, so I was just sitting waiting. I like had like nervous energy, nothing to do, and I got blackout drunk and wrote a script, and over 4 days, but I only
Yeah.
wrote when I was blackout drunk, and I did not
Jeez.
read the script, so I didn't actually. I didn't know. I knew the general story, but I didn't
Right.
know what was in the script.
For
And
sure.
I'm like, we're gonna have a Zoom call, and we're gonna do a table read of this script. And the people I invited, three of them were people I met from podcasting.
Awesome.
And it's like,
Awesome.
I trust them and like them that much that because it is a trust X, because it's
Of
like,
course.
I don't know what's in here. It could be terrible. It could be like it's offensive, but not like it's not
Yeah.
the wrong kind of.
Yeah, and it's funny, it's I think, and not to cut you off, but like there's a difference between what's in the script versus how me personally breaking character as a human being, right?
Hmm.
And if people can distinguish, it's like when Michael Richards went on that rant, right? Like, okay, you broke character, dude. Like you broke character from like what you were doing on stage. So I think, when it comes to a script, I mean, Tropic Thunder is one of my all-time favorite movies,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
Right. And so like if you can't, I'm sorry, you don't have a pulse if you can't laugh at that movie. Like if that's impossible not to laugh at that movie.
Oh
Right.
yeah,
The whole point of it was to be absurdly offensive. That's the whole point of the movie, right? It was to have, him be, Robert Downey Jr.'s character the way that it was, and then have the character ripping on him for being the way that he was. And if you're like, I really don't, this is culturally sensitive, like that's the point. The guy was like, look how
yeah.
stupid you look. You're standing next to me.
Well, yeah, I do always find that funny too, with the stuff where they will criticize. Well, it's especially
Yeah.
weird when they criticize the actor to me, because it's like, well, he's an actor.
He's an actor.
He's
He's a
supposed to be playing like I don't think he got any criticism, but let's just say Leo in
Django.
Django Unchained.
It's an
Like
actor.
he's playing a racist, horrible individual, like
That's the point.
that's
That's
the
the
point. He's
that's
not
the point.
he's not the hero.
That's the point, dude. Like, what do you want me like? It's taking place in the Civil War era. Like, what movie did you think you were walking? And oh, by the way, it's directed by Quentin Tarantino. So
Yeah.
you have two things, you have two things going on right now, man. Like, and so like, turn your brain off for a minute. Nobody really died during the making of this movie. You'll be fine. I promise you. Like, when you get out of the movie theater, the sun will be rising, or in the next morning if you're fortunate enough to wake up. Like, life will go on, man. Like so,
Yeah.
it's
No,
just a movie, dude.
it's just a movie, and it's a good movie. And again,
It's
it's
an
not.
excellent movie.
Yeah, it's not like glorifying him either. That's the other thing. It's like, there
Yeah,
have to be villains. Villains do bad things and say
for
bad things,
sure,
and
for
like,
sure.
there's murder in movies. That's the
Yeah,
worst thing you can do to a human
it,
being is murder them.
exactly,
Nobody's
exactly.
like, oh my gosh, Kevin. Well, Kevin Spacey's not the best example. I was thinking of Kevin Spacey in Seven.
Oh, that was great. By the way, what a
Great.
phenomenal. Oh, dude, man. Now that was to this day that they had him like because that would have been so spoiled in 2025 that he was the guy. And I mean, there's something to be said about the non-social media era to have an actor of that caliber who's right off of Usual Suspects and riding at the career high, that era that he had in the 90s. And all of a sudden you're like, he's John Doe. And oh, by the way, that's in the box. And
Yeah.
you're just like,
Oof.
I mean, that was whew. Whew.
Yeah.
And I was like 13 when that movie dropped. And trust me, that was a jaw-dropping moment when I was a teenager to see something like that.
Yeah, well, you can tell how much I love that movie by the fact that's the first murder that
Hmm.
popped into my head.
And then let me say this too for people it's weird that people don't have to worry about like if you saw the movie at 13, like I didn't, movies don't kill people, people kill people, right? Like I saw plenty of violent movies growing up and you can discern fact from fiction, right? And so
Oh
that's a
yeah,
great movie in its own merit. So, people could just, I think people look too deep when they see something that's on screen and they're like, well, this is why society's failing. No, it's because somebody did something that was evil themselves. They're a
yeah,
filmmaker. They're not a socially responsible person. That's not their
yeah,
job.
yeah. No, no, yeah. I agree with that. It's crazy.
Right.
It's. I mean, I was talking about this the other day, talking about a shooter thing, and it's like there. It's obviously, to I can't imagine intentionally well, or unintentionally, but I
I
can't
mean,
imagine killing another human being. You have to there
outside of
aside of
self-defense.
revenge and self-defense. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
if someone did something to my kids, I could kill them. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Right,
I
right.
get
Like
that.
you're sleep in your house and you got to take care of business and it's a terrible earth-shattering moment, in your livelihood. But like, all of a sudden waking up after you had you went to the coffee shop, you filled up your car, and then next, like, hey man, this is the day I'm going to decide to, I mean, I'm going to crash out and take people with
Yeah.
me. I mean,
A
there's no worse,
movie is not going to drive someone to that kind of mental illness. It's just
not even
not
close,
possible.
not
No.
even close.
No.
Not-
No. I've played hours of GTA and I've never run over a prostitute. I'm just saying. Not in real life. Not on purpose.
Oh man. So yeah, everybody just needs to chill for a little bit, man. It's what, what it is that I think to cultivate a respective audience and to cultivate something that people want to be on is a powerful thing. And I'm just a small fish in a very, very big pond, which means that I have a responsibility to one or two things. Always put out compelling content and always be prepared. If I can do those two things, I can live with whatever took place on my show. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, is it always going to be, you know, the crim, the greatest episode? No. But if somebody can sit back and say, man, that guy was respectful, he listens, and he's prepared, that's all I can ask for.
Yeah. No, and look, that's one thing uh I would say as a grizzled podcast veteran. One thing I would say is that it's learn that not every episode needs to be a home run. You can
Nope.
take the walk. That's a
Yep.
good, you did a good
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
There's times you're going to strike out. I've had a few episodes, and not it's not the guest's fault, but I mean, look, anytime I've done it 3 times, and I will
Mhm.
not make that mistake again. I've had 3 podcasts in a day.
Oh yeah.
So I start drinking at 3 o'clock for the first podcast. I'm drinking more. The second podcast is usually the best. That 9 p.m. podcast, I
Done.
don't even remember record. I wake up the next day and I'm like, did I record that? Did I
Oh my
make
gosh.
that podcast? And yeah, it was like,
Downhill, baby.
whoo. Yeah, listening back to that episode, it
Yeah.
was that there was one specific one where I we're talking about the MCU, and I'm like, the reason the MCU is not doing well right now is blah 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 blah. And he gives a 2 minute answer, good
Yeah.
response, and I say, yeah, the MCU. You know the reason the MCU is this. And he pauses for a few seconds and very, and
Yeah. Awkward.
he's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
He's been on the podcast
Luckily,
before. Yeah, so he picked up like this.
this dude's done.
Now he texts me that, or I text him. I'm like, man, I'm sorry, and he's like, dude, that was so funny.
Well, if and if you want to, go down the wormhole of the MCU, I think, listen, it's no secret that ever since like 2019 that things have not been good. And, sometimes less is more, and I did enjoy Fantastic Four. I have not seen Thunderbolts yet. So so I'm waiting on Thunderbolts
I
to
haven't
get
seen
us.
either of those.
Yeah, so I think they're in the do no harm stage right now because Fantastic Four was a very good movie. It was very respectfully well done. But I think that they were so scarred from some things that happened previously that they're just like, just don't just like I don't want to say play it safe, but let's make sure this movie is just quality, right? So now you can dig yourself out of the hole you put yourself in. And I'm still sometimes like, there's some things that still, fascinate me of why things didn't happen. Like whatever happened to Shang-Chi, right? Whatever happened, like seriously, like that just died on the vine. And then, I've had this discussion multiple times and I still to this day don't understand it. How hard is it to make Blade? Like, how is that movie hard? How can that movie possibly be difficult to make? Like
I don't know.
I mean, I'm not even being like, I'm literally, I've watched the 1998 movie. That movie dropped when I was 15. I'll never forget. There used to be a website called Dark Horizons, right? So you can see all the upcoming movies. This, for people who are listening, before movies came out, there was websites that gave you the stills of what was taking place as opposed to like actually like Googling the set photos. So there were exclusive people who focused just on these avenues. So I see the Blade trailer. Then I watched it in front of Lost in Space when it dropped in 1998. And you're like, that's Wesley freaking Snipes. And you're like, and then this movie drops, and then you're realizing they're going to remake it with Mahershala Ali. You're like, hey, that guy's really good. And
Good,
here they
yeah.
are, like 6 years later, and you're like, it's a vampire movie. It's a vampire movie. It's John Wick with vampires. Like, how is this a hard movie to
Yeah.
make?
I don't understand it, and they got a great actor who's lined up to do it. Like it's not like they can't find someone to play Blade.
I mean, come on. And so like now it's at the point where you're like, maybe you just don't want to make this movie, or maybe there's a concern that because it's rated R and it's not connected to anything else that you're doing, I think it would actually be infinitely successful because it's that Halloween type atmosphere movie where it's not in the Fantastic Four world. It's not in the X-Men world. This is our action horror flick. So I mean, yeah, I'm still puzzled to this day that this movie has struggled to get off the ground.
Yeah, I think they focus too much on everything connecting,
Yeah,
where it's
right.
like you can have. I really enjoyed. I think I was not maybe in the group of. I don't know that many people did, but I really enjoyed Moon Knight
Okay.
because
Okay.
it didn't connect with anything. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
not that I remember.
You can enjoy it on its own merits.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I wasn't worried about looking for cameos or Easter eggs or thinking, "Oh, this would be a cool point for Sean Evans,
Yeah. Yeah.
Chris Evans to show
Yeah.
up."
Right.
It was just like a separate thing. Uh, yeah,
You get
I,
puzzled.
yeah, I think they did drop at I think the post credit scene of the Eternals. They dropped a
Yes.
little hint for
About
Blade.
Blade. Yeah, and it was just
Yeah,
like it never came to fruition. I will say this though, and I think that this is no secret. X-Men is the holy grail of what you can't mess up. Right? I think that I mean the anticipation because X-Men 97 was a great series. It was a phenomenal, it was really good continuation of what people loved in the 90s for the nostalgia purposes. And the bar is high for that because it's such a rich character. And I'll say, characters. And then I think when they first bought Fox in 2020 2019 that era, the anticipation was really high because that was right after Infinity War. And now people are like, oh, this is gonna be, wait till they put them in here. And then 5 years later when the quality started going downhill, you're like, now I just hope that X-Men is very well done as opposed to that apex of what that was. Because if they are able to recapture that magic, if you have an X-Men of the level of Infinity War, I mean, lights out, man. I mean, just lights out. But it's going to take a lot of hard work to get back to that level.
yeah, yeah. It's if they put the focus on quality over
Yes,
quantity, if
yes.
they and I know they're kind of tying into these next two Avengers movies, everything's going to be coming together, and maybe some of the things that seem like mistakes will make more sense.
Right.
Maybe, um, and I heard one person saying like they're just going to cut some of those. Loose ends that are
Why not?
like the post credit scene of the Eternals potentially.
Just
It's
let it
just like
go.
this. We're not just. It's done.
Yeah, and maybe that's for the better. Either way it goes, I think that the biggest thing about it is that sometimes less is more. Sometimes you have to get back to the basic tenets of the story making, ability. And I just hope that as a fan, I hope that there's a lot more of the Infinity Wars and a lot less of the Ant-Man threes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah. It's Ant-Man 3.
that's a rough one.
I
That's
can't even because it had the great. I was so excited. It had the
who
greatest
wasn't?
potential.
Who wasn't?
Like they were finally going to lose, which happened in Infinity War,
Right.
but they were
Yep.
finally going to lose. I'm like, there's and by the way, two of the actors in that movie are done with acting, so they easily could have killed off
Yeah.
Hank
Yeah.
and whatever the wasp's name,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Evangeline Lilly.
Evangeline Lilly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, they easily could have killed those two off. I
Yeah.
think she even announced before that that was her last movie. So I'm like, oh, they're gonna kill her.
Right.
They're probably gonna kill either Scott or Hank. Like,
Right.
just makes sense, and that's gonna be devastating.
You remember when you were in the theater when Infinity War dropped and that ending happened? Like it's very few times in a movie theater when like a bad ending happens and you're like emotionally shattered, right? Like you're so emotionally like, seeing Tom Holland's character fade away, you just sit there, you're just like, damn, I feel like crying.
Yeah.
Like
So you know how good it was.
Yeah.
before that movie, before Infinity War, I saw that in the theater because my brother and sister and their spouses were going to the movie.
Hmm.
They invited me to come along, and I had nothing else to do, and I didn't want to sit at home by
Hmm.
myself on a Tuesday night. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go. I had seen Iron Man 1, Iron
Hmm.
Man 2, The Incredible Hulk,
Hmm.
Avengers 2, Age of Ultron,
Okay.
and Ant-Man. I saw
Mm.
Ant-Man.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You knew nothing. Yeah.
I
So you
knew
came.
nothing, and it
Yeah.
still shook me, the ending of that
Yes.
movie. And I went and immediately started binging from Iron
Abs.
Man to because that movie was so good. And
Right.
I'm like, damn, that
I
was
need to
so,
pick. Yeah,
yeah.
I got to pick up the pieces. And then, what you just said was even more fascinating was that was one of the reasons why when things started going downhill because the husband brought the son, who brought the wife, who brought the girlfriend, who brought a friend. So everything became a five, six people event. And unfortunately, like when quality declines, similar to like a podcast, if mine's ever goes downhill, they'll stop telling somebody else to hey, listen to this, hey, listen to this. And then you're like, you know what, man, his quality's starting to suck. And so, kind of to circle back to that, it's like when you said you wanted people, to come to your place, that's the next stage of evolution that I hope the Tron podcast does. You have to start getting in person. You have to start, hey, how did you launch this business? Maybe you're at the business, right? Maybe you're actually talking to the person. How did you make this? How does this particular facility run with this particular product going on? You
Mm,
know, because you have to evolve, right? Like, and
yeah.
I'm not the person that invented. Like anybody can go on YouTube, and there's a million and one people that have content, and I subscribe to a lot of them. And what they did was their first show does not look like their 150th show. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, right? They started to get better at what they're doing. So if I haven't evolved after a certain amount of episodes, shame on me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I love that. And that's a good uh I have fallen at times into a rut with
Hmm.
podcasting. And to avoid doing that, it's always what can I do different? What can I do better?
Right.
Um and even it's difficult with I you know I've had at times I've had people who I have fetched guests for me.
Hmm.
And luckily I'm at the point where now I don't have to chase guests too often. They
Right.
usually get referred to me,
Right.
which is the dream because I've said, and I'm at the point where for the first Monday, aside from Christmas and New Year's, for the first Monday in 4 years or something, I didn't do an episode a few
It's
weeks
weird.
ago because it was coming off a month of filming a movie where I did not record a podcast,
Yeah.
and I ran out of my backlog, and I'm like, I can't book a guest. Like I'm filming a movie, I'm acting, I'm directing the movie. Like
Yes.
I'm like, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely
Um,
not.
so I had a week off, and I'm like the
The pickup is going to be pretty. It's not going to be a long gap from getting people back on here again, though, because,
no,
they're getting
no,
referred to you and it can pick right back up.
yeah, shutting down for 2 months basically,
Hmm.
which I've done twice because I filmed a movie in November and then in June,
Right.
and it's a tough build back up process.
For sure.
That's the one savior I've had this year because it's been I'm giving myself a little bit of grace here because feel produce producing making two movies where I'm the guy in charge in essence uh in 7 months is kind of incredible.
Oh, for sure. So I
Uh
got to imagine.
so it's like of course I've had a little bit of stagnation because
Hmm.
there's been large chunks of time where it's like I need to focus on this. I can't focus on the podcast.
For sure, for sure. And and sometimes, I had to figure out that sometimes I was like, I have to make sure that to create a quality product, I need substantial enough time to actually do my proper research, give the guests the time that they deserve. And that's tough when you're trying so hard to get something off the ground and all you know is, I just got to film another one. I just got to film another one. I just got to film another one. It's like, well, that's not really the best thing to do because, if you do them back to back to back to back to back, man, it can take a toll. You're sitting there for 3 hours, 3.5 hours. You're
Yeah.
like, you start burning the candle on both ends when it comes to filming these things.
Yeah, for sure. And I've noticed too. I mentioned I'll no longer do three in a day because the third one's a train wreck. But the doing two in a day is good. But I've noticed when I did like two in a day and then two in a day, and I'm like, oh, that's a month of podcast. The problem is a little bit, especially with the style I have. It's like I've got a uh, uh, certain thing in my head, and it
Yeah,
becomes a theme over four episodes. That was
yeah,
like something that was just affecting me for 2 days, made a whole month of podcast episodes kind of. Yeah, and it's I don't know, but I don't know if people notice it, but I'm like, oh, what? I
yeah.
talked about the same topic to four
Yes.
straight guests.
Yeah,
Like,
man. Yeah, man. You start reaching in the same bag all over again, right? You haven't actually done anything else interesting. You tell the same joke, right? You reference the same point of reference from two or three different guests, and you think it's fresh because you said it to a new person. But then when you listen to backlog, somebody could sit back and say, dude, you're still saying the same exact thing over and over again, right?
right.
And so like it's no different than, you know, how companies evolve. Like Apple went from personal computers to floppy disks. Then they were getting their lunch kind of taken by Microsoft for that years. But then next thing you know, they come out. They said, okay, we're not in the home PC market so much. We're going to come up with the iPad, the iPhone, and then it became cheap and niche. And now all of a sudden it revolutionized and it brought them back from the grave, so to speak. And now you have to have their product. So when you realize that you can't dip into the same well anymore because a lot of things are easily duplicated over and over again, like a podcast, right? It's a saturated space. So you better come up with fresh content and different perspectives if you want to be successful in this very crowded space, because ultimately it's certainly not easy.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. And yeah, people will come to you and leave you just as quickly.
Oh my God. Oh my, to your point, like I know it sounds selfish for me to say this, but the reason I don't talk about certain things on my podcast is because the greedy side of me says I don't have to do that on my show. I don't have to do it. It's my show. So if I've had people email me and want to talk about certain things, and I'm just like, that's not that's not what this show is about. And so there has to be some guardrails for yourself to not put it, because once you say yes and then it goes that kind of way, that's my fault.
Yeah.
That's my fault. If somebody, is like, I'm a kitten killer, and I'm like, yeah, come right on here. Let's talk about how you kill household pets for a living. And then I'm like, yeah, I did that to myself.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I love that because you're right. It is a I I think you probably would be mostly similar to me of I've had flat earthers a couple on the podcast, and I let them say their piece. I let them talk and I ask questions, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to debate them.
No.
And I don't really
No.
I rarely have ever like debated
Come on, what are we talking
even
about?
when it's like there was a moment not to bring us to that, but there was a moment where a guy who was on Joe Rogan's podcast, one
Mhm.
of the worst Rogan episodes ever, not even on Spotify anymore. This guy was just anything. He just hates Rogan, right?
Yeah.
So I said something about how I was disgusted that Sanjay Gupta went on Joe Rogan's podcast and admitted ivermectin was a human medicine, and then the next day went on CNN and called it horse paste. And I'm like, but he's a liar, and he's like, no, it is a horse paste. I'm like, right,
Yeah.
but he's that's not. And there's one of the few moments, and I was like so ready, and I'm like, nope, nope, I'm not.
Right.
This isn't what.
Yeah, it's you have to fight your worst impulses as a human being, right? Like so in that just because I have a neutral space for my show doesn't mean that I may not have my own personal biases and beliefs, right? But I'm a
Right.
learning person evolving every single day. But like, do is it human of me to sit back and say that there are of whatever the topic could be, that this was a settled debate on this particular topic centuries ago. And this was, this was and I believe, I really believe that because this is an era where people can make money, I think that even if you don't believe in it, whatever side of the fence, whatever you fall on, I found a way to make money, and it's cool to debate these settled topics because it's a great way for me to make money. And it could
Yeah.
be anything. It really could be legitimately anything. Like you said, like a flat earther. I mean, like you can find out real quick the answer to that, and I mean that's been settled since the first world map got established in centuries ago, right? But there's still money to be made off of that. There's still
Oh
people
yeah.
who are going to interview you, and you could write books about it. So even if I go home and I mean they're chuckling to themselves every single day, like man, this is a great way to make a living, right? So
Yeah.
you
I,
know it really is
hey, I owe the first time I had a guy on my podcast. That's why my YouTube channel's monetized. The watch hours and the subscribers I got from that. It's like,
hmm
I mean, and that's the kind of the same thing. So
I'm just
it's
keeping it
like
right.
now again, a lot of people actually watch that interview and are like, "Man, yeah, that was great that you let him talk,"
Exactly.
because
Yes. Yes.
most of what he
It,
says is nonsense, but you let him get his point
ex
across.
that's the point, right? And so like there are and that's a characteristic and skill unto itself too, because for a person like that to keep selling themselves to different platforms, getting people to talk to them, I mean, what does that say about the person who's doing it? Right? I mean, realistically, right? You can sit back as people say, "Oh, they're full of it. They're peddling whatever the case may be." But if I'm keeping getting booked for it, like, who's really at fault here, right? Like, don't watch me. That's really what it boils down to. So, it works both ways, right? So, but ultimately, I think if I have a decent vetting experience, like I personally, don't have guests like that because that's just not that I just don't,
Yeah,
right? But like for a variety of reasons, but that's just not the space I've cultivated. But to each his own. And so and now that I'm growing and I'm able to get on a show like yours, shows that I'm doing the right thing, so to speak.
yeah. No, I like the vibe of your show. Yeah, and you shouldn't mess with it. that's that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
mine is a little more drunk.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a space for that too, because like, like I like to, like, I love watching people that are, like, there's a certain jealousy I have sometimes where people can go on there and just be like, yeah, man, F, man, expletive, this is, full of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. And I would love to be able to let my hair down a little bit. I'm just not the space that I try to cultivate is not that, and I'm not capable of being authentic as that because I'm not the guy that's going to sit back and have a beer and then be like, blah blah. And I'm not dissing that, but that's just not who I am, and it would come
Yeah,
across inauthentic, right?
right, right.
You know,
That's the key. That's the
right,
key.
right.
And I actually had someone relatively early on say, maybe you shouldn't talk about drinking so much. And I'm like, so I'm a liar?
Right, right, right. You know what I'm saying? And like because there's not guys that like literally on a Saturday night just want to pound a few and have tell good jokes and laugh and curse and then wake up the next morning and watch football. Those people don't exist, right? Or watch basketball.
Yeah.
So like
No, crack's crazy.
wake up and smell the roses, people, right? So like
Yeah.
but
I
that's it's just not that's just not me,
yeah. So you would have a different answer than me. Then I realize how non-discerning. I'm not non-discerning. Like again, I'll never have an SEO marketing person come on the podcast again. But I had somebody like, is there? Oh, because I was saying something to the effect of, like I would have any politician on the podcast,
hmm
and like I had a woman who's running for Senate in Minnesota.
Yeah, was that oh my gosh, what's her name? Marissa Simonetti?
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes.
we talked about drinking most of the time. We didn't talk
Yeah.
about politics at all.
Yeah, I didn't either. I listen, and here's the thing is I when I book you in good faith. And she's a very nice person that I got a chance to interview. Like I, I'm not going to gotcha the guest. If I know what you believe in or whatever, or what you don't believe in, or how you roll, it's my job to say yes or no. But once I have you on the show, then that's my fault if it goes off the rails from wherever you came from
Yeah.
whatever perspective you decide to give. And it's not about, and I say, hey, salute to your accomplishments. It's a big deal to run for public office. It's not an easy thing to do. You are, so it's like, if everybody would just like every time I go, on social media, I'm like, are you really going to spend your free time talking about something that pisses you off? Is that real? Like my free time? Like I'm not. I have no interest in that. None. Like show me a picture of you at Disney World, man. I don't want to. Because, and I was thinking about this before I got on the show because anybody who goes on the business of trolling people understand one fundamental thing. It always flips when this system that we have in this country, right? So what makes you happy will ultimately make you cry at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like we've all played sports. You're trash talking, you're having a great time, you're beating somebody. The next time you play, there's a high possibility that the person that you were trash talking or another team is going to be like, okay, I'm going to stomp this dude out, right? So
Yep.
just understand in life, like it ain't always gonna go your way, and the same trolling you do online in 2 or 3 years can be thrown back in your face. So I just stay out of that situation altogether.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. The only thing I ever do on social media is I'll tweet about the Saints, and obviously there's a lot of negativity about that, like during the games, you know.
Yeah.
But it is incredible, and this speaks to that younger generation who hasn't interacted. Some of the insults that
Oh my
get
gosh.
thrown, I'm
Oh my
like,
God.
oh, you can tell this kid's never been out for a drink because he would get his ass stomped in 22 seconds. I'm like, sometimes, and I don't engage. I usually just block immediately.
Of
Maybe
course.
I'll
Of
say
course.
something like, "That's a nice way to treat another human," and block
For,
them. So
for
so,
sure. For sure.
but occasionally I'll still look, and like it's almost always like a 5'8" spindly little kid who probably couldn't bench press the bar, and 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 it's like, man, I wish this little kid would come up. I'm 6'2".
Yeah.
I'm down in my 260s. I was 300 a few months
Yeah.
ago, but it's like I would literally just like do that and you die.
Yeah.
Like like man,
Yeah.
you should like
Yeah.
man, drives me insane.
Yeah, it's like, listen, man, for all intents and purposes, the world works in mysterious ways. You're gonna walk into unsafe spaces. You're gonna meet people that don't agree with you, that don't like you, that, from the minute you talk, you realize the conversation is gonna be a dead end zone, and like, but tweeting and vibing about it or getting in your feelings about it. Listen, man, the sun shines in the east every single morning, and so it is what it is. It's not what it's not, and don't look for any there that's not there. But it's even more depressing in all seriousness the older people get because you're like you really are in like your 50s and you ain't got nothing else better to do.
Yep.
You ain't got nothing else better to do. Like
I
you acting like that at this like really like for real. We really doing this right now?
I still remember a funny interaction I had on Facebook when I used to like think in the beginning stages like maybe I'll spend $5 on Facebook ads promoting this episode.
Yeah.
And then I'd randomly get like some 75-year-old man like, who the hell is this loser and why is he in my feed? And
Oh
and,
my gosh.
and I would respond, well, I paid Facebook to advertise, and obviously I'm looking for the geriatric old cranky man demographic
Oh
for this
my
podcast.
Right. Right. Listen, and I guess like maybe I'm basic, maybe I'm kind of just like, and I'm not coming across as like, Zen, but you know, the Tron podcast is built to be the one space that I know I can block out the noise. And if you can come on there and block out the noise and the echoes and all the show bit that permeates the rest of the day, and we could talk about your journey, how you elevated, how you continue to elevate, how you pivoted, where you went from. I think those stories are universal and they resonate. And that's one of the reasons that you and I were able to cross paths because I have guardrails up to protect myself from those type of things on the show.
Yeah, awesome. So the Tron podcast, tell my audience where they can find. I mean, they can find it probably pretty much anywhere they listen to podcasts, but
Yeah,
tell them where they can find
right.
the podcast and you on socials and everything.
I'm the worst social media person that ever existed because my posts are generic as heck. Like I don't have the, but I do the tronpodcast.com. It's on Spotify, Apple, all the other major podcast platforms. The website's tronpodcast.com. It's on YouTube as well. All the episodes are airing there. And so if anybody wants to reach out, be a guest, I promise you one thing, you will not have an agenda. Your story will be told the way that you want to tell it, and you're going to have a good experience, with me as the host because at the end of the day, it's about you and not me.
Mm. And as I'm chewing my ice,
No, I'm not tripping. I'm not
I
tripping. There's
it's
been many times on here, like I got gum under my tongue that I'm not chewing, and I have to remember not to chew it because there'll be some, guest that'll be like, "Dang, he's a great host, but he's smacking on that gum." I get, I get cotton mouth really easily, so I have to have gum in my mouth.
Yeah, no, I do too. That's
Mm.
why I drink. That's the only reason I drink. Obviously.
Mm. For sure.
Uh, I recommend the podcast. It's a lot of fun. And the links will be in the show notes, folks.
Awesome.
Rashad, thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate you, brother. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Absolutely.